Hey everyone, I'm Klara and welcome to my YouTube channel. In today's video, I'm going to be talking a little bit about being vegan or plant-based, how to convince your parents to let you go vegan if you're still a teenager, supplements, and debunking a few myths and answering a few questions. Let's get comfy! Okay, so first of all, I just wanted to give you a little bit of background. I'm 17 years old and I've been vegan for almost 2.5 years. I actually don't like to say I'm vegan, I prefer to say I'm plant-based because I still eat ice cream and a little bit of chocolate, and on the rare occasion I'll have some cheese or some pizza if there's no other options available. Just because when we travel, and we do travel quite a lot, it's really difficult sometimes to find vegan options, so then I'm lenient with like eating a muffin if there's egg in the muffin. And it's happened to me before where I've told someone I'm vegan and then they're like, but I saw you eat chocolate. So now I just prefer to say I'm plant-based. But the important thing is that if there is a vegan option, I will almost always have that option. So like for example, I'm obsessed with ice cream. Ice cream is my favorite food, but there aren't any vegan ice creams available in the supermarkets I go to. So for example, if I were living in America and Ben & Jerry's vegan ice cream is available to me, I would definitely not blink and just buy that instead of normal ice cream, but you gotta work with what you have, right? So I didn't grow up being vegan. I went vegan when I was 14, and this happened after my family and I watched a documentary on Netflix called What the Health. I found the documentary, but I didn't know it was about vegan eating. I thought it was more about the American healthcare system and medicine and the FDA and drugs and smoking, and I was really interested in that. So we watched it, but it turned out to be about veganism. When we finished watching the documentary, I said to my family that I think I want to give it a go because a lot of the points they made in the documentary made a lot of sense to me. So my family, bless them, instead of saying that I'm on my own, they all decided to join me. So as a family, we decided to try being vegan for a month or two. But we were all kind of on our own journey of becoming vegan. And then when the 2 months were up, we kind of just decided to stick with it. We didn't really think about it, we didn't really talk about it, we just kind of stuck with it. And yeah, we've been vegan or plant-based ever since. I also just want to stress that I never thought I would go vegan. I loved bacon, I loved cheese, I loved milk. I just didn't see myself not eating those things. And I never thought that I would be able to give that up. But once I committed to trying to eat a bit differently, it actually wasn't so difficult. I wanted to talk about things you should know if you want to go vegan or plant-based. Number 1, being on a whole food plant-based diet basically means you don't have any eggs, meat, fish, or dairy. Instead, you focus on eating more plants and plant-based foods that haven't been processed to a large extent. You focus on eating fruits, nuts, seeds, vegetables, and whole grains. And whole grains would include something like rye bread, sourdough bread, pasta, quinoa, bulgur wheat, and things like that. It basically means that you need to try to stick to eating foods where nothing good has been taken away from the food through processing and nothing bad has been added. So minimal preservatives, colorants, flavorants, that kind of thing. Number 2. If you want to try being vegan or being plant-based, you don't have to jump in all at once. You can do it gradually. You can transition from eating meat and dairy to not eating any or eating less. It's more about what you're adding to your diet rather than what you're taking away. So don't focus on the fact that you won't be able to eat things that you might have come to love, like bacon or cheese or ham or I don't know. Focus on all the stuff that you're adding to your diet. So eating more vegetables, eating more fresh things, eating new kinds of foods that you never knew about. This way you kind of crowd out the stuff that you don't want to be eating anymore by replacing it with new stuff. A good way to start this transition is to either try and only eat meat 3 times a week, or if you go out for coffee, try and order the coffee with plant-based milk instead of cow's milk and see if you like it. Or another really useful way of doing this could be to decide that your breakfasts and your lunches are going to be completely vegan, but then you're going to work on making your supper more vegan. This way you can gradually learn how to cook vegan food, which I know is a concern for a lot of people because they feel like they don't know what they're going to cook or what they're supposed to eat. And you can adjust slowly. That way it'll be more sustainable and you're more likely to stick with it in the long term. Number 3, my favorite, protein. I don't know why, but there's this massive misconception about vegans and protein. I feel like if you tell someone you're vegan, the first thing they think about is, oh my word, you must be protein deficient. And honestly, I don't even know where this comes from, because in reality, we need way less protein than we think we do. There's this idea that you need heaps and heaps of protein, when actually you only need 0.8 grams of protein per kilogram of body mass. So the way you'd work out roughly how much protein you need to eat every day would be to multiply your weight by 0.8. And then you'd find out how many grams of protein you should be eating. Another thing I'd like to point out is that you're not going to die overnight of protein deficiency. In the long term, it's really bad for you, obviously, but if one day you eat a little bit less protein, or even a lot less protein than you should be, you're not going to die overnight. You'll have a little bit of time to settle into your vegan diet and get used to how much protein you should be eating. If you eat a whole food plant-based diet, you will not have any problems with protein deficiency. If you only eat French fries and Oreos, then of course you're gonna have protein deficiency, among many other problems. If you focus on eating a varied diet with lots of different kinds of foods, you'll be fine. You won't even have to count the protein in the food. But if you really want to be sure and really want to be safe, you can. In the 1950s, someone came up with this notion that you have to eat your protein in a certain combination to get the benefits. And this is a myth. Guys, please don't believe this. This is a whole other conversation, but it's been proven wrong, and if you want to do a little bit of research on it, feel free, it's really interesting. Another very interesting thing is that almost no one in the Western world is protein deficient, but 97% of Americans are fiber deficient. So if you want to be worried about something, rather be worried about eating your fiber. And fun fact, meat doesn't contain any fiber. Whereas when you're eating a whole food plant-based diet, you're eating foods that are mainly made up of fiber. Number 4, calcium. When I think of calcium, I still think of a glass of milk. Not because the glass of milk is going to give me calcium, just because I think it's so ingrained in us to immediately think of a glass of milk when we think of calcium. Calcium is very important. It's important for brain health, muscle contraction, and control of blood pressure, and stacks of other things. In 100 milliliters of 1% fat cow's milk, there's 129 milligrams of calcium. In 100 grams of kale, there's 150 milligrams of calcium. And in 100 grams of sesame seeds, there's 967 milligrams of calcium. So you're definitely not going to have a problem finding calcium in a vegan or plant-based diet. Number 5. Iron. One of the most common questions I get as a vegan is, are you anemic? Do you have iron deficiency? And the truth is, no. You get 2 types of iron, heme iron and non-heme iron. Heme iron comes from animals and non-heme iron comes from plants. Heme iron is actually quite bad for you because once you've eaten it, it actually forces its way into your system. Whereas non-heme iron from plants is actually a better option because what happens is your body actually only absorbs it when it needs it, which is why researchers thought it was too difficult for most people to absorb. But actually, our bodies were just absorbing it when we needed it, rather than absorbing it just for the sake of absorbing it. And if you're worried about your iron levels, it's really cheap and easy to test for your iron levels, so you can do that on a regular basis if you want to. Number 6, supplements. I feel like there's also a general understanding that if you're vegan, you take supplements. This is not the case because you actually don't need most supplements. And on top of that, most supplements aren't really tested properly, and therefore they can cause your body if you don't do your research and choose your supplements wisely. It's better rather just to get all your minerals from the food you eat. If you eat a varied diet, this isn't something you even have to worry about or think about. The only supplement you need to take when you're on a vegan diet is a vitamin B12 supplement. Now before you go, oh, but then God didn't intend you to be vegan because if you can't get the B12 from plants, then you shouldn't just be eating plants. Before you say that, let me just explain to you why you need a B12 supplement. B12 actually comes from the soil. So animals get their B12 from the soil. The problem is that in modern agriculture, the soil has become so sterilized and depleted that it doesn't contain a lot of vitamin B12 anymore. So most of the animals in food lots get supplemented with vitamin B12 anyway. So whether it's a choice between eating animal products, which has been supplemented with vitamin B12, or just taking the vitamin B12 supplement yourself, it's up to you. It really doesn't make a difference. Some foods are vitamin B12 fortified, which means they have extra vitamin B added to them already, like nutritional yeast. So you can keep an eye out for those in shops if you want to do it that way instead of taking the actual supplement. A good B12 supplement brand in South Africa is Solgar. That's the brand we use. Something to be aware of and to be careful of when buying a vitamin B12 supplement is that there are two kinds of vitamin B12. I'm not sure of the names, they're really long kind of scientific names, so just do a little bit of research on that. It'll literally take you 2 minutes before you buy a supplement, because you could be buying the vitamin B12 supplement that has the wrong kind of vitamin B12, which is actually not going to do much for you. Number 7, fiber. Fiber makes you bloated, guys, okay? I can't believe this, but this is a problem for some people. Some people don't want to go vegan or plant-based because they complain that once they start eating too many beans or too much fiber, well, they get kind of gassy. What I do want to say is if you're subject to this gassiness, just know that it settles in over time. So it might take your body 3 months, 2 months, 6 months to adjust, but your body will adjust and it won't be a problem in the long run. Number 8. A lot of people are worried about how they're gonna stay full. If you eat just fruit for breakfast and just a plain salad for lunch, you might get a little bit hungry throughout the day. In this case, legumes, whole grains, nuts and seeds are your friend. Something else people are concerned about is that being vegan is too expensive. Guys, this isn't true. If you buy a lot of dairy and meat alternatives, it can be really expensive, but you don't have to be eating those every day, and you shouldn't be eating those every day because they're very highly processed. Those are there for a treat or to help you make the transition. So for example, if you really like the taste of meat and you really like hamburgers, an easy way to stop eating the actual meat is to eat something called a Beyond Burger. Beyond Meat is a company that created products that look, taste, and smell almost exactly like meat. Obviously, it's going to be really highly processed, so you shouldn't be eating this every day. But if you're wanting to make the transition from eating meat to not eating meat, this is perfect to help you make that transition because you still get the satisfaction and the taste that you associate with meat without actually eating the meat. A lot of parents don't want their kids to go vegan because they're worried it might damage their health. So if you're trying to convince your parents to let you go vegan, the best way to do this is to do your research. You're not going to ask your parents for a car and then when they ask you how much the car costs or details about the car, you're not going to sit there and say, oh, I don't know, because you didn't research it. Research it. Hit them with the facts. They can't say no to science. One of the biggest obstacles would probably be if your parents cook for you, they might say, I'm not going to cook for you, or I'm not going to cook 2 kinds of meals every night, which is fine. See it as an opportunity to become more independent. You're going to be cooking for yourself one of these days anyway when you move out the house. When you're at college or out the house and all your friends are making ramen or 2-minute noodles because they don't know what else to make, you'll be making gourmet dishes. There are so many reasons why people decide to go vegan. Some do it for animal cruelty, some do it for their health, others do it for the environment. It takes 11 times the fossil fuels to make 1 calorie from animal protein as it does to make 1 calorie from plant protein. Animal agriculture is responsible for 20 to 30% of worldwide water consumption. You'd save more water if you didn't eat 1 pound of meat rather than if you didn't shower for 6 months. And oop. If everything I've said here inspired you to try and be vegan or even eat just a little bit more plant-based, or if you don't believe me, here are some resources that you can use to grow and learn about being vegan or being plant-based. I get a lot of my meal inspiration from people on Instagram like Earthy Andy, someone called Dr. Vegan, Dr. Michael Greger, Minimalist Baker, and Deliciously Ella. Guys, Earthy Andy has this cute little vegan family and she lives in Hawaii, and that's just like my dream. Stay tuned for more videos because I'm definitely going to film some videos about what I eat in a week as a vegan and lunchbox ideas and all that good stuff. Thank you so much for watching my video. I really hope you enjoyed it and I hope it helped you. And I think that's it for the video, guys.
She's a Mona Lisa.